It's all about the layers. Welcome back. Layering sounds for music can be as easy as 1, 2, 3. Like literally 1, 2, 3. You have one sound, add another sound, and then add another sound, and that's basically all you need. I mean, you really only just need at least 2 sounds for it to be a layer of sounds, right? Layering is done in many different ways. Some ways that are obvious and other ways that are not as obvious. They're a bit more subtle. Now in this video, I'm going to go through just a quick overview of some different ways to do layering just in general, not just with synths, but with other sounds as well, and show you the kinds of results that you could get from layering. Now for this, I'm using Unify. It's a plugin that lets you combine your virtual instruments and effects together. It's not required for you to do your own layering because you could just do it inside your DAW, whatever DAW you're using. I just like using it because with Unify, I can not only put layers together, but I can also save all of the settings in each individual layer as a preset, and if I wanted to mix and match them with other layers and make other different sounds, then I could do that much more easily than if I were to set that all up in a DAW individually. You can save things like FX chains and MIDI changes, but this isn't a video about Unify per se, so let's get to layering. Some types of layering involve using multiple types of similar sounds to create a bigger, wider sound. For instance, you might hear people using this without realizing it with orchestral sounds. For instance, let's say you have samples of a smaller string section, but you want to make it bigger. So you would mix and match different string libraries together to make something bigger. Another way is to use layering to make an ensemble using different parts of the same instrument. For instance, in Unify at least, I can set up different instruments and offset their key positions so that I can play them all at once. I can play them all separately. Or I can play a combination of all of them separately and all at once. Now, those examples I showed you are pretty standard ways of using layering to enhance your music. But what about creative layering? Layering different components of different sounds together to make something new, something different, something original, or something weird. Let's start with something simple, an instrument that everyone is familiar with, a piano. Right here, I have just piano text set up. Right, just your basic piano sound. But what if I wanted to add to this? What if I wanted to give this sound something brighter, but also something warmer at the same time? And the thing with piano tech is that it's basically a physical modeled piano, so it's not real, it's not samples, it's all synthesized pretty much. And not everyone likes the sound. And personally, I like it, but I can hear where parts of the sound aren't quite there yet, just overall, but that's just a personal thing. But let's just say we wanted to add to this. What could we do? Well, let's see if we could add something that's brighter to it. But let's say I wanted to really enhance the brightness here. I have another piano here. This one is the Giant. It's a very, very old library, but it's very bright. It's an upright piano using, I think, only one string. So both of those together right now sound like this. So one of the other things that I notice here is that because these samples are not perfectly in tune with each other, there's a little bit of a chorusing effect. But why don't we add something a little darker here? I have alt piano from Westwood Sounds, and this one on its own sounds like this. There's a little bit of stereo spacing here. I have some of the mics turned off and some turned on. Bring the close up. Darkest, if I bring the room up. We get a different stereo image of the sound. And so, if I were to mix two of them together, still have a little bit of that chorusing effect. And now all three. And all of that together, we've made pretty much a bigger chorused piano sound. And I'm doing that by mixing different sounds together. Of course, another thing I could do is just duplicate the same sound over twice and detune them within the tuning panel of each of these, offset by 2 Hertz, either way, 440 to 442 and then 438, and get a honky-tonk-like sound. I don't know why I'm so bad at demonstrating this. I play exactly the same thing every time. Now that was something that was kind of still within the realm of a general piano sound. What if you were to go a little bit different with it? What if you were to make a sort of a hybrid sound that wasn't necessarily meant to sound too acoustic? I have basically the same sound to start off with Piano Tech. I'm going to add a short little FM sound, and that sounds like this. Both of those together. But now that I'm in here, I'm actually going to reduce the hardness so this is a much softer sound, just in general. Bring that volume up, bring this volume down just a little bit. And it's much more synthetic because that FM sound is really front and center. Let's add a third sound. This one is a mellow E grain. It's another FM sound. The other thing about layering is also being aware of what your levels between all the sounds can be. And so if you were to do something a little more in the realm of sound design like this, sometimes mixing the sounds to different levels will actually help you greatly get something that is usable. I've actually made Piano Tech quite a bit soft, and so because of that, the FM sounds are really cutting through. And it almost sounds like there is no acoustic piano in this mix at all. Which can be good. See if I can add in one more. That one's a little bit out there compared to the rest of the sounds I already have in this mix, but why not see where this goes? I kind of like it. Now, I'm going to do something just a little bit crazy. I'm going to duplicate this, and I'm going to detune it. Let's bring the volume of both of those down. And there we go. So that's how you could do something along the lines of sound design to create something new. Now, let's say you didn't want the sounds to necessarily coalesce into one nice sounding thing, and you wanted to go into the creepier sound design area. I've got this sound already set up here. I'm using OBX. It's a very strange sound. Let's add something to that. I'm going to add another sound from OBX, and this one is called Nightmare Waves. That one's very noisy, very glitchy compared to the other one, which is a little bit like that, but not so much. Bring that down. Pan them, maybe? Shall we add a waterphone? Sure, why not? This one I think I'm going to add a faceplant sound. Now, something about this sound that I want to kind of change is the first two sounds don't have the longest attack and don't have the longest release, and there's no effects on them. So I think I'm going to add some effects to those. Why don't we go with something big? I think I'm going to swap that sound out for something different because it seems like those are one-shots, and I don't want one-shots. I want something that can last a little bit longer, so let's swap it. And instead I'm going to swap it with a sound that I made myself a little while ago. Now we have this very kind of dark, dystopian sounding atmosphere thing. Nice. I've added a sound that has this weird sort of modulation going on in a couple of operators. And it comes in every now and then goes out. It sounds like this. And so mixed with everything else, we've got this nasty thing. And that's how you can do creep me atmospheric layers. Now, something that is done actually by a number of sound designers and other artists is effects layering, because that kind of stuff happens in a lot of post-production for media, films, movies, TV shows, games, and so forth. So right now, I've just got a basic noise impact thing here. Not very impressive on its own, but of course we only just started, so let's go and add some other sounds here. I've added this sound right here. It's a phase plant synthesized cinematic tom drum type sound. Those two together so far. The third sound I added here is a synthesized kick drum. It sounds like this. So far, it's shaping up to be a bit of an impact sound. Fourth sound that I've added is this down drop. I just put some sine waves together, and I took the harmonic tuning out. So it's just a fixed tuning with an envelope modulating the pitch for both of them. They both have a bit of overdrive, and they're going into another overdrive, so it creates this kind of beating effect as the pitch goes down. And then I have a little bit of disperser on it. The fifth sound I have right here is kind of a synthetic percussion sound with a bit of reverb. It's mostly filtered noise, actually. But it has this very, very rough impact sound. The next sound I have is a bit of distorted noise in FM8, and that, with the rest of them, sounds like this. And the final sound that I have is this Bram-like screamer. It's a very distorted sound, and that sounds like this. Now, all of them together make this sound. You could use something like this for a trailer. Now, another one of the obvious uses for layering would be for things like pads or leads or keys sounds and stuff like that. Now, when you layer too many of these sounds together, you could end up with something that ends up conversely thinning out the sound or turning it into something that is just not really that usable. But it depends on how exactly you use it. This bass sound, I just have this. Some sort of pseudo sawtooth sound. If I were to duplicate this sound 8 times and detune them a bit, I would get something that sounds a little more like this. Which, in some contexts, that might work, but if we were to keep this going and keep detuning, what would end up happening is we would end up with a much messier sound. Although, on the contrary, if we were to have a sound that instead of detuning it that much, we only detuned it just a little bit, but still had 8 versions of that sound stacked on top of each other, we could get something that actually transforms the sound from a sawtooth into something else. It makes it sound like it has a different waveform entirely. Now, for something like this, I am using an instrument here that does key sync all of the oscillators, so that's why it has that unison-like effect. If you were to use something that has free-running oscillators, this would not be something that you would hear, but sometimes having multiple of the same voices does have its perks. Now, one of the things that can be a little bit tricky is to figure out if the sounds that you're adding actually complement each other, don't interfere with one another, and actually fill in the space with something interesting. For instance, I have a big pad right here, and a lot of these sounds are very similar, but there are some elements that are different, and so adding all of these sounds together still kind of works. It gets it into a bit of a sweet spot, and it doesn't just duplicate the same sound multiple times and just make everything louder. Now this pad is made up of multiple different parts, and as I said, a lot of the sounds are very similar. They occupy the same sort of frequency range overall, but there are some differences. This first sound that I have up here is a pad. There's some stuff going on here. In the first partial, I have this. The second partial, I have a little bit of a similar thing going on. The third partial sounds like this. But something interesting that I have going on with this sound is that partials 6 and 7 both have delayed starts. So those two together do this. And I just have those soloed, which is why we can't hear the rest of the sound. But if I were to just play that again, we have those come into the sound. Next one's just an M1 sound. I have two M1 sounds in here, actually. One of them is very, very sound effects based. Provides a bit of texture to the sound. The other one is not that. I have two FM8 sounds that are panned opposite of each other, and they're meant to swell in if I were to push up the mod wheel. And so, without that mod wheel pushed up, they both sound like this. And they both get brighter when I do that. One of these actually has a little bit of portamento. It's either portamento or a pitch bend on the release of the note. For this sound, I actually have the release stage of the filter jumping up so that it ends up being brighter when I let go of the notes. The sound above it, it's just opening up of the filter and a little bit of modulation on the operators. The next one is actually from a sample library from Orchestral Tools. It's from Habitat. What's interesting about this library is that they are combos of two sounds, and you change between them by moving your mod wheel. The basic sound is an acoustic recording of a number of different orchestral instruments. For this one, I think it's a piano cluster and some woodwinds, like oboes or something. If I push the mod wheel up, we get the synthetic sound. The next sound is also in Synclavier V. And it has this nice little evolving texture to it. Right at the beginning, we have this kind of repetitive bell type thing right there. And then it gets brighter. And finally, the last sound is from another sample library, and they are basically flute swells. With a bit of reverb and a bit of an atmospheric layer added to it. And all these sounds layered together bring us this. And one of the things that's nice about this, at least for me, is that depending on what sound you're using, if it has different attack, different release stages, not everything is going to be perfectly at the same length or at the same level of volume or modulation or things like that. And so you can get a really nice, kind of complex, interesting sound that way. Now let's say you were going to start from scratch. What kind of things would you put into a layer for this? Well, for me, I think some of the things to really hone in on are what is going to make your sound a bit more multi-dimensional than just a single sound. Because let's say I have this right here. It's another sound from Habitat. It's a string sound, I think, just some string section. And it's paired with this synthetic sound over here. Now, what I'm hearing here is that we've got strings. Now, strings sound a certain way, right? They are not just sine waves. They have, harmonic overtones, and they sort of fill up the space with those harmonics. So if I were to add in another sound, I would want to not necessarily conflict with those frequencies, but complement them, or maybe even go above them. Like maybe I could stack something up at an octave higher, maybe something at a different texture, maybe something that has a little bit of a different movement to it. And so those are some of the things I think about when I try to add to something like this. What if I were to add this metallic bell-like texture? Call it glitter keys. This is all FM. And I can control the brightness of the sound with Aftertouch. I think that's what I have here. As well as the mod wheel. So there is that. Yeah. Sounds like a string section on top of this first one, because I think this first one is mostly lower strings. And then we've got this one, which is an octave or so higher. So far, that's 3 sounds, and we can go and add another one. But one of the things I'm now thinking of is just what else is there to add to this sound, because at least with the sounds that I'm already using, I feel like we pretty much have what we need. We don't really need to add too much to it, because it is possible to add too much to stuff. Okay, I think I found my sound. I'm using something called Novum. It's a granular synthesizer that can break down any sample that you put into it into 6 different components, and you can even change out those components with different samples to granulate. But the sound that I'm using is very textured. It's this sound. I've lowered the volume quite a bit in reference to, or in relation to everything else, because right now I have this. Now I've got this. Makes it sound quite a bit ambient in a way. It's almost like an environment. Like the sounds of air and trees and stuff moving around you. I do want to add a little bit more of a chorusing kind of effect, and I don't want to do it necessarily by adding a chorus effect here, but I could. But I could also go into here. And do this. I'm going to do one more thing that may be a bit drastic, but I am going to... What I've just done is I've changed the actual notes that I'm triggering to be an octave higher. I can hear. Now it's an octave up. And now the sound will be much brighter. And that's the layered sound. Now, that one is not too involved. There's not a lot of sounds being played all at once. It's just 4. But the thing with layering is that you don't have to have a minimum amount of sounds to layer together. It just all has to deal with what works in relation to one another and what doesn't, right? It's possible to go too much. It's also possible to go too little, but it really only depends on what your use is and what needs you have. For something like this, all of my needs are pretty much met with this sound, I think. Could use a little bit more chorusing, a little more detuning, I think, with 1 or 2 of the sounds, but overall, it has a wide frequency range, it has texture, it has movement, it has some high-end and some low-end stuff, and this is pretty much what I would want in a layered pad. There are a lot of different ways to layer sounds together to get what you want, whether it's a pad, whether it's effects, whether it's a percussion instrument, whether it's an atmosphere, or a swell of sound. Layers can do wonders for you. I'll see you in another video on some other day. Bye now.